Comment below. What's your favorite short story or book title in any language? Chapter 1. My first English storybook. I remember it like it was yesterday. I was holding a book. It was not in my language. It was in English. The cover had bright colors. There was a little boy with a balloon. I thought, this looks nice. But when I opened it, everything changed. The words, they looked strange. They felt strange. My eyes saw the letters, but my brain didn't know them. I read the first sentence. I tried, but I didn't understand. I felt scared. I closed the book, but something inside me said, try again. So I opened it again. This time, I didn't try to read fast. I looked at the picture. A boy holding a red balloon. I looked at the sentence, the boy has a balloon. I pointed to each word. I said them out loud, slowly. The boy has a balloon. I didn't know the word has. I didn't know balloon either, but I guessed. I looked at the picture. My brain started working. Maybe this word means the red thing? I thought. That was my first English guess, and it was correct. That gave me hope. I turned the page, more pictures, more sentences. I read slowly. I used my finger to follow each word. I spoke each one like it was new. The balloon is red. That line made sense. I looked at the balloon in the picture. It was red. The words were real now. They were not just words. They were meaning. I smiled. That one sentence made me smile. That day, I only read one page. Just one. But I felt strong. I felt proud. I told my mom I read something in English. She smiled too. It was a small win. But it felt big to me. The next day, I read the same page. Again and again. I didn't get bored. Each time I read better. I read louder. My mouth started to know the words. My eyes started to move faster. That book became my best friend. I read it every day. When I was sad, I read it. When I felt weak, I read it. It made me feel brave. Then something new happened. I started seeing those words in other places. On signs, on the TV, in my school book. I knew that word. Boy. Yes, I remember. Red. I saw that in my story. The story taught me words, and the words stayed with me. They were no longer scary. They were mine. I did not understand every word. That's okay. I didn't need to. I just needed to feel something. And I did. That first English story made me believe I can do this. It was not a big book, only 10 pages, but it gave me a big dream. The dream to read more, to learn more, to speak someday. That small book gave me a big heart. You can start like this too. One page, one line, one word. Don't wait. Don't worry. Just begin. Even now, I remember the line, the boy has a balloon. It still makes me smile, because that line started my journey. Chapter 2. Small Stories, Big Power. I didn't begin with big books. I didn't open a dictionary. I didn't try to learn hard grammar. I started with something small, very small. A short story, just a few lines. That was enough. The story said, Tom has a cat. I smiled. I knew Tom. I knew cat. The words were simple, but when they came together, they felt new. They felt strong. I read the line again. Tom has a cat. It was easy. It was clear. It was real. Then the next line. The cat is black. I looked at the picture. A small black cat next to Tom. It made sense. The story was short. Only 5 lines. But I read it 5 times. Maybe 10 times. Each time it felt better. That story made me feel something. Not because it was deep or emotional, but because I understood it. I didn't need help. I didn't feel lost. I felt proud. I realized something important that day. Short stories have big power. They don't need many pages. They don't need hard words. They just need to connect with you, to show you that you can understand English. After that, I looked for more small stories. I found one about a girl and a dog. Anna walks her dog. That was the first line. Then, the dog runs fast. I read slowly. I said each word out loud. The dog runs fast. My voice felt stronger. I started to copy the sentences. I wrote them in my notebook. I read them again at night. I made new lines. Tom runs fast. Anna has a cat. I changed the names. I played with the story. That's when I knew short stories are not just stories. They are tools. Tools to build your English. Each sentence gives you something. A word, a structure, a new way to speak. I didn't care if the story was for kids. I cared that I was learning, and I was learning fast. Reading short stories became my daily habit. Just 5 minutes a day. One story, one paragraph. That was enough. Sometimes I didn't understand a word, but I didn't stop. I guessed. I used the picture. I used the next sentence. Slowly, I got better at understanding without a dictionary, and I felt proud again. One day, I found a story about a boy who lost his ball. He looked under the bed. He looked in the box. No ball. I smiled. I understood every word. I didn't translate. I didn't pause. I just read and felt happy. That was a big moment for me. Because I knew this story is small, but the progress it gave me is big. Now, I always tell learners, start with short stories. Don't be shy. Don't be afraid. These stories will build your base. They will make you feel brave. They will make English part of your heart. I loved how short stories made me feel. I felt smart. I felt strong. I felt like I was finally learning. And I want you to feel that too. Don't wait for perfect grammar. Don't wait for big words. Start small. Start with stories. Because small stories have big power. Chapter 3. How Stories Teach New Words. After reading many small stories, I noticed something special. I was learning new words, not from a list, not from flashcards. I was learning them from the stories. One story said, "The sun is shining." I knew sun, but shining? I didn't know that. I looked at the picture. The sky was bright. The boy in the story wore sunglasses. I guessed, maybe shining means the sun is bright. I didn't need a dictionary. I didn't stop reading. I guessed the meaning. I felt proud. That's how stories teach new words. They don't just show you the word. They show you the word in action, in feeling, in a moment. That's powerful. Another story said, "She is sad." I knew she. I knew is. But sad? I wasn't sure. I looked at the girl in the picture. Her eyes were down. She looked unhappy. I guessed again. Sad must mean not happy. Yes, I got it. I started learning like this all the time. New words came, not in a list, but in stories. One line said, "The dog barked." I stopped. What is barked? I looked at the picture. The dog had its mouth open. Maybe barked means the dog made a sound. I guessed. I learned. Stories made me a detective. I used pictures. I used context. I used feeling. And each time I guessed correctly, I felt smarter. I remembered the word better. I didn't memorize the word bark. I felt it. I saw it. I used it. That's the secret of learning through stories. You don't just learn words, you experience them. Another story said, "The boy is tired." I looked at the boy. He was yawning. He was lying on a bed. Tired, I guessed again. I understood. I felt the word. I used it that night. I said, "I am tired." And it made sense. It felt real. Words became part of my life. I kept a notebook. I wrote down the new words from each story. Not many, just 2 or 3. I wrote them with the sentence. The boy is tired. Not just the word tired, the full sentence. Then I made my own sentence. I am tired. That's how the word became mine. I learned cold from a story about a girl in the snow. I learned jump from a frog story. I learned clean from a story about a messy room. Every word had a story, and every story helped me remember the word. This is different from lists. Lists get boring, but stories feel alive. Stories teach without pain, without pressure, just joy. I started looking forward to new words. I wasn't afraid of them. I wanted them. I wanted to guess them, to use them. And soon I found myself using those words in real life. I said, "I feel tired." I said, "The dog is barking." I said, "She is happy." And people understood me. That made me so happy. Stories are powerful teachers. They don't give you boring lessons. They give you life, feeling, pictures, moments. And in those moments, you find new words. Words you will remember forever. So don't be scared of new words. Let stories show them to you. Let stories be your guide. That's how I learned, and that's how you can learn too. Chapter 4. Reading with Voice and Finger. When I first started reading stories in English, my eyes moved fast, but my brain was slow. I would see the words, but I couldn't feel them. I jumped from line to line. I lost the meaning. I forgot what I just read. I felt lost. I felt tired. Then one day, my teacher said something simple. She said, "Use your finger. Read with your voice." At first, I didn't understand. I thought, why should I use my finger? Why speak out loud? I thought reading was only with eyes. But she smiled and said, "Reading is with your body, your eyes, your voice, your finger. Use all of them." That day, something changed in me. I went home. I picked up my small storybook. I opened the first page. I put my finger on the first word. Slowly, I read it aloud. This. Then I moved to the next word. Is. Then the next. Ah. Then the last. Dog. I heard my voice. I saw the word. I touched the line. I smiled. It felt good. It felt real. Using my finger helped me focus. It stopped my eyes from jumping. It guided me. I didn't lose the line. I didn't miss words. My finger became my reading friend. My voice helped even more. When I read out loud, I heard the words. I felt them in my mouth. I listened to myself. I understood better. The words stayed in my brain. It wasn't just reading. It became speaking. I was training my mouth, my ears, and my mind at the same time. At first, I was shy. I didn't want anyone to hear me. So I read in my room. I closed the door. I whispered. I said the words slowly, then a little louder, then even louder. My voice got stronger. I read to myself. I read to my books. I read to the walls. It didn't matter. What mattered was that I was practicing, and it worked. I read a line 10 times. I read a short story every day, slowly with my finger and my voice. Every time it got easier. Sometimes I didn't understand a word. I didn't stop. I guessed. I kept reading. I used the picture. I used the sentence. I used my voice. The words started to feel familiar. They became my friends. I started loving this new way of reading. I felt proud. I told my friends, "Try reading with your voice." They laughed. But when they tried it, they smiled too. They said it helped. I felt happy. I was not just learning. I was helping others learn too. My confidence grew. My reading became smoother. I didn't need to stop all the time. I didn't feel confused. I felt connected to the words. Later, I added something more. I used a pencil to underline words I didn't know. After reading, I checked their meanings. I wrote them down, but I didn't do it while reading. I didn't want to break the flow. I wanted to enjoy the story first. Then I learned the new words later. This helped me stay happy and not frustrated. I read with love, not fear. I didn't care about mistakes. I just wanted to enjoy. My finger kept me slow. My voice made it strong. My heart felt proud. Reading with finger and voice became my daily habit. I still do it today, even now. When I pick up a story, I touch the line. I speak the words, I feel the meaning. It's not just for beginners. It's for everyone. It's powerful. It's simple. It works. And I want you to try it too. Pick any short story. Use your finger. Use your voice. Read one line at a time. Feel the words. Say them again. Let them stay in your mind. Let them grow in your heart. That's how I learned to read and speak English. Not from grammar, not from rules, but from feeling the words with my finger and my voice. You can do this too. Chapter 5. Easy Stories, Easy Wins. In the beginning, I wanted to read everything. I looked at big books. I saw thick novels. I saw English newspapers. I thought, I must read these to be good at English. But when I tried, I felt lost. The sentences were long. The words were difficult. I didn't understand. I felt stupid. I closed the book. I felt small. Then one day, I found a book with a colorful cover. It had only 10 pages. The sentences were short. The words were easy. It said, "This is Tom. Tom has a kite." I smiled. I understood it. I read the next line. Tom runs with his kite. I could see the picture in my mind. I was not just reading. I was living the story. I didn't feel lost. I felt strong. That was the day I learned something important. Easy stories give big results. They are not just for children. They are for anyone who is learning. And they are the best way to win small victories every day. I read that little story again and again. I knew the ending. I knew every line. But each time I read it, I felt more confident. The words became clear. The sentences became smooth. I could even say them without looking at the page. I could tell the story to my friend. I was not reading. I was speaking. I was proud. That short and easy story gave me something big. Belief in myself. I started looking for more stories like that. I found another one about a cat and a hat. Then a story about a girl and her new shoes. Each one had short lines, simple grammar, and kind feelings. And each one made me feel like a winner. I read them before bed. I read them on the bus. I read them during lunch. I read when I was happy. I read when I was sad. These stories were not just lessons. They were my friends. Some people say, "That book is too easy." I say, that's the best kind of book. Because when it is easy, you don't feel afraid. You don't feel tired. You feel brave. You feel happy. That is the key. Easy stories help you enjoy English. And when you enjoy, you learn faster. You learn better. I never rushed. I never forced myself. I didn't try to read 50 pages. I read 5 lines, 10 lines, 1 page, with joy. I repeated them many times. I made the story mine. I played with the words. I made new endings. I drew pictures. I laughed with the characters. And slowly, I became a reader. One day, I finished a full storybook, alone, without help. I understood the beginning, the middle, and the end. I felt like a star. I ran to my mom and said, "I finished a book." She clapped. I clapped too. It was a small story, yes, but it gave me a big win. It gave me power. It gave me joy. That's what easy stories do. They give you small wins. And small wins become big confidence. They help you keep going. They show you that learning is possible, one step at a time. So, if you are learning English, don't start with hard books. Don't pick the biggest story. Start with easy ones. Read slowly. Read with love. Repeat the story. Act it out. Draw it. Tell it to your friends. Make it part of you. Let it live in your heart. That's how you build your English. Not with pressure, but with peace. Not with stress, but with smiles. I started with easy stories. They gave me easy wins, and those easy wins changed everything. Chapter 6. Story plus audio equals double power. One day I found something new. It was not just a book. It was a book with sound. The same story I had read before. Now I could listen to it too. I pressed play. I heard a voice. It was calm. It was clear. It said, "Tom has a kite. He runs in the park." I smiled. I knew that line, but now I heard how it really sounded. The voice helped me. It showed me the rhythm. It showed me how to say the words. I picked up my book. I read with the voice. I matched my words to the speaker's words. Tom has a kite. I said it just like that. I copied the sound. I copied the feeling. I was reading and listening at the same time. It felt powerful. It felt like double practice. One story, two skills, reading and listening. It was magic. At first, I read slowly. I paused the audio. I said the line. I played it again. I said it again. I copied the tone. I copied the smile. The voice said, "The kite goes up." I said, "The kite goes up." We said it together. I felt like I was speaking with a friend who never got tired, a friend who was always ready to repeat. I read the story many times. I listened even more. I listened in the morning. I listened at night. I listened while brushing my teeth. I didn't understand every word, but I didn't stop. I let the sound stay in my ears. I let the story live in my mind. Soon, something beautiful happened. I started to speak like the voice. My English sounded smoother. My sentences were clearer. I said words the right way. I didn't think about grammar. I didn't think about spelling. I just spoke like I had heard. The story helped me. The audio trained my ears. The words became music. And I was learning the tune. I remember one story about a little bird. The voice said, "The bird flies high." I said it with him. I whispered it. I shouted it. I acted it out. I became the bird. The story was short. The voice was simple, but the feeling was strong. I felt like I was flying too. I felt like I could speak. That's the power of story plus audio. It brings English to life. Later, I found more stories with audio. I searched online. I found free apps. I found YouTube videos. I listened to fairy tales. I listened to short conversations. I listened to jokes. I didn't write anything. I just listened and repeated. Slowly, my brain changed. My ears got smarter. My mouth got faster. My confidence grew. Some days I just listened without reading. I closed my eyes. I imagined the story. I followed the voice. It felt like a movie in my mind. Then I opened the book. I read again, and I understood more. The story became clear because I had heard it first. That helped me a lot. It made English feel natural. Story with audio is double learning. It is reading and listening. It is seeing and hearing. It is slow and strong. It is fun and smart. It helps you understand. It helps you speak. It helps you feel the language. And that's what we need. Not just rules, but feeling. Not just reading, but living the story. So if you want to grow fast, Find a story with audio. Read it. Listen to it. Copy the voice. Play it again. Say it again. Repeat it with love. Make the story yours. Let the voice be your guide. Let the story be your teacher. You don't need a classroom. You don't need a big book. You just need a story and a voice. That's double power. And that's how I started to sound like a real English speaker. Chapter 7. Making Stories My Friends. There was a time when English felt like a stranger to me, a language full of hard words and fast sounds. I didn't feel connected to it. I studied it like a subject like math or science. But then something changed. I stopped looking at English as a test. I started seeing it as a story I could be part of. I picked up a small book about a boy and his dog. I read it many times. The boy is Tim. He has a dog. The dog is big. The dog's name is Max. It was so simple, but I didn't just read it. I felt it. I imagined Tim. I saw Max in my mind. I read the story every night. And slowly, I felt like I knew them. They became my friends. The book became my friend. I wasn't reading anymore. I was spending time with people I liked. Every time I opened that book, I felt happy. The story didn't change, but I changed. My reading became faster. My understanding became deeper. I didn't need to stop. I didn't need to think too much. The words came naturally. The sentences felt easy. The book was short, but it gave me so much. It gave me confidence. It gave me comfort. I started to talk about Tim and Max like they were real. I told my family, Tim's dog ran away today. I smiled when I said it. They smiled too. They saw my joy, and I felt proud. I felt like English was no longer a stranger. It was my friend. After that, I looked for more books like that. Easy stories, short stories, stories that felt kind. I found one about a girl who lost her red hat, another one about two friends in the rain. Each story gave me new words, yes. But it gave me more than that. It gave me feeling. It gave me a reason to keep reading. I didn't care if the story was made for children. I cared that it made me smile, that it made me feel safe, that it helped me grow. I started to talk to the stories. I would read a line and say, "Really, Tom?" Or, "Oh no, she fell." I laughed with the characters. I felt sad with them. I read slowly. I read with emotion. I made faces. I acted out the parts. My English was getting stronger, but I didn't even notice. I was just having fun. I was just being part of the story. Then I started to change the story. I wrote my own version. I took the same characters, but gave them new adventures. I wrote, Max the dog goes to school. I read it aloud. I laughed. It was mine, my English, my story, my imagination. I became a storyteller. That made me feel powerful. Some people think stories are just entertainment. But for me, they were much more. They were lessons. They were practicing. They were my daily speaking tool. When I didn't know what to say, I used story words. When I wanted to practice, I retold the stories in my own words. I said, Tim has a dog. One day the dog runs away. Tim looks for him. He finds him at the park. It was short, but it was real, and it was mine. If you want to learn English, don't just study words. Make friends with stories. Read them again and again. Let them stay in your heart. Let them speak to you. Let them become part of your life. And one day, you'll find that English is no longer scary. It is warm. It is kind. It is friendly, just like your favorite story. Chapter 8. Story retelling boosts speaking. After I made stories my friends, I discovered something even more powerful. I started to tell the stories again, but this time in my own words. I didn't read from the book. I closed it. I sat alone and said, "Let me tell you a story." I tried to remember the story about the boy and his dog. I said, "There is a boy. His name is Tim. He has a dog. The dog is big and funny." I forgot some parts. I changed some parts. But I didn't stop. I just kept speaking. That was the moment I realized retelling stories is one of the best ways to learn English. I wasn't just reading anymore. I was thinking. I was speaking. I was using my memory, my voice, my own words. I felt strong. I felt free. At first, I made mistakes. I said things like, "The dog runned away." Then I stopped. I laughed. I corrected myself. The dog ran away. That correction stayed with me because it came from me, not a teacher, not a book. I learned it deeply. Every time I retold a story, I got better. My English became smoother. My mind started to think in English sentences. I stopped translating. I just spoke. My voice didn't shake. My heart didn't race. I was confident because the story was already inside me. I knew it, and I could tell it in my own way. I started doing this every day. I would read a short story in the morning. In the evening, I would sit down and try to tell it again. Not perfectly, but honestly. I would say, "Today I read a story about a girl. She has a red hat. It flies away in the wind. She runs after it." That was enough. I was speaking. I was using English. I didn't care about perfect grammar. I cared about the story. I cared about the feeling. And that helped me speak more, speak better. Soon, I began sharing stories with my friends. I said, "Do you want to hear a story in English?" They laughed, but they listened. I told them about the boy and the kite. I told them about the cat in the hat. I acted it out. I used my hands. I used my face. They smiled. They clapped. They said, "Your English is good." That moment gave me more than words. It gave me pride. It gave me courage. One day, I recorded myself telling a story. I listened to the recording. I heard my voice in English. It was clear. It was strong. I felt proud again. That voice was mine. That story was mine. And the progress? That was mine too. All because I started retelling stories. Now, I always say this to learners. Read a story, then close the book. Take a deep breath and speak. Don't worry if you forget some parts. Don't worry if you change something. Just speak. Say it like you are telling your best friend. Use your own words. Use your own voice. Let the story come from your heart. This is not just a method. It is a secret, a superpower. When you retell a story, you turn reading into speaking. You turn knowledge into practice. You turn fear into fluency. And the best part? It feels natural. It feels fun. It feels real. Because it is real. I still do it today. When I read a new story, I think, how will I tell this to someone? I imagine my friend sitting next to me. I imagine their face, and I begin, let me tell you a story. That one line opens the door, and English walks in with me. Chapter 9. Thinking in Stories. One day I was walking down the street. I saw a small boy with a red balloon, and suddenly my mind said something, not in my language, but in English. I heard the words in my head. The boy has a balloon. I didn't plan it. I didn't try. It just happened. And in that moment, I smiled, because something new had begun. I had started to think in stories, not just study English, not just read English. I was thinking in English, and not just thinking in single words, like boy or balloon, but in full, simple sentences. And these sentences felt like small stories inside my head. I had reached a new level, a quiet but powerful level. At first, I used to think in my own language. Then I would translate, then speak. It was slow. It was hard. Sometimes the sentence came out wrong. Sometimes it didn't come out at all. But after reading so many small stories, after speaking them, retelling them, feeling them, my brain started changing. It began to skip the translation. It began to form English sentences directly. And those sentences, they were like stories, little stories about what I saw, what I felt, what I was doing. I looked out the window and thought, the sky is blue today. I opened the fridge and thought, there is no milk. I watched my friend laugh and thought, he looks happy. These were not textbook sentences. These were real thoughts, in real English, inside my real life. Thinking in stories made English part of me. It wasn't something I learned only in class. It became how I saw the world. Every small moment became a story. I walked into a shop and thought, I want to buy an apple. I sat at the bus stop and thought, the bus is late today. I drank water and thought, this is cold. Simple lines, easy words, but they were mine. They came from me. They lived inside me. I didn't need a notebook. I didn't need a dictionary. I just needed my eyes, my feelings, and a little English inside my heart. I also started asking myself questions in English. What should I eat today? Where is my pen? What time is it? And I answered in English too. Let's eat rice. It's on the bed. It's 4:30. These small conversations, inside my own mind, made a big difference. They helped me speak faster. They helped me feel ready. I was no longer waiting for someone to talk to me. I was already talking. Inside. I was practicing every moment. Even in silence. Thinking in stories also helped me remember words better. I didn't just memorize umbrella. I thought of the story where the girl stood in the rain. I didn't just memorize laugh. I remembered the boy in the story who fell and giggled. The stories became my memory. They were pictures, feelings, actions, and that made the English stay with me, longer, deeper, stronger. I still think in stories. Every day. I look at people and imagine their story. I look at my day and describe it in English. Not because I have to, but because I want to. Because it feels natural. Because it feels good. And that's the goal. Not just to learn English, but to live it. To breathe it. To think it. To dream it. You don't need perfect grammar. You don't need big words. You just need small stories in your mind. If you want to think in English, read stories. Tell stories. Speak stories. And then, slowly, you will begin to think in stories too. And when that happens, English will not be something outside of you. It will be inside you. A part of your every thought. A part of your life. Chapter 10, From Story to Fluency. It started with one story, a very small one, just 5 lines, simple words. A boy and his kite. That was the beginning. I didn't know it at the time, but that little story would lead me somewhere big. I read it once. I read it again. I said it out loud. I felt the words. I followed the sentences with my finger. I listened to the audio. I copied the voice. I retold the story. I made it my own. And without realizing it, I was building something inside me. Word by word. Sentence by sentence. Confidence, skill, belief. I didn't need big grammar books. I didn't need to memorize hard rules. I just needed a story and a heart that refused to give up. The stories were my teachers, my friends, my mirror. They showed me how to use English, how to feel it, how to speak it. At first I was afraid. I was shy. I didn't want to talk. But the stories gave me something to say. They gave me a voice. When I couldn't think of words, I remembered a story. When I was stuck, I used a line from a book. I was never empty. I was never alone. I had stories inside me. They lived in my memory. They lived in my heart. I kept reading. I kept speaking. I kept thinking in stories. Every day I practiced a little more. Some days were hard. Some days I didn't understand. Some days I felt slow. But I didn't stop. I read the same story again. I listened again. I spoke again. And every time I grew. My English became better. My sentences became longer. My voice became louder. My fear became smaller. The stories showed me that fluency is not fast. It is not perfect. It is not something you get in one day. Fluency is when you can speak simply, clearly, honestly, from the heart. Now I can speak. I can read. I can write. I can think in English. I am not perfect, but I am fluent in my own way. I can tell a story. I can describe my day. I can ask for help. I can share my ideas. And that to me is real fluency. And it all started with one short story. So if you are starting your journey, don't be afraid. Don't wait for big lessons. Don't wait for the perfect time. Start now. Start with a story, a small one. Read it, say it, feel it, repeat it, make it your friend. Then find another one, and another, and another. This is the road. This is the path. From story to fluency. From silence to speech. From fear to freedom. You don't need to be fast. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be brave. One line at a time, one voice, one heart. That's all. If this video touched your heart and helped you learn, please give it a like and subscribe for more English with feeling. And comment below, what's the first short story you want to read in English? Let's grow together, one story at a time. You are not alone. You're already on the journey. Keep going, keep reading, keep speaking. Fluency is closer than you think.